Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rodriguez-Dolman, and today I have a package, and by the title you know exactly what it is. Today I've got myself Eminem The Slim Shady EP on vinyl. It's in this box and I will be getting into it in just a second, but before we do, I am on the road to 5,000 subscribers, so if you could press that subscribe button, that'd be greatly appreciated to help me hit that goal. And if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and make sure to stick around for more vinyl related content in the future. But for now, let's get into Eminem The Slim Shady EP. So I'm very curious to get into this one because this is actually something from House of Waxx. Now this is quite a, I'd say, renowned slash infamous company. I've heard various different things. I've heard the amazing reviews, I've heard the not so great reviews, but I wanted to check them out for myself to make my own opinion. To briefly summarize who House of Waxx are for those of you who do not know, essentially they are a group of designers who basically make a bunch of vinyl records slash a range of media, from like tapes to posters to obviously vinyl records. And a lot of what they do does revolve around Eminem, but it also does involve other artists who have unreleased material. So essentially this is a really nice bootleg. Now if you were to ask me about how I feel about bootlegs, I personally don't really like them. Part of me doesn't like it because most instances it's a case of like an artist has released music but they haven't put it on vinyl for whatever reason. Could be legal issues with samples, they might just not want to, could be issues with pressing, whatever reason it is, there isn't a version of it on vinyl. Meaning that when you do come around to getting it on vinyl and it's a bootleg, the money isn't going directly to the artist to help fund their future projects. Now, I think a bit of a cope or devil's advocate to that is like, say someone like Eminem, he's not really going to be missing out the pennies when people are getting copies of the Slim Shady EP because he's got more than enough income coming his way. And that's like a whole debate you can have in itself. But the second reason is I kind of just like having official stuff. I don't really like showing a collection being like, oh, I've got this one, but it's not really an official thing. It just feels like it's dirty. I don't know how to put it. But the reason I got this is because I have seen a lot about House of Waxx and I was really interested to see how this one came about. Obviously I don't have any version of the Slim Shady EP on vinyl, and it's definitely an interesting project to be able to own, and I think it's time I actually show you how this thing looks instead of waffling on for much longer, because this is the Slim Shady EP. And what I will say about this straight out of the box is it is very faithful to the original release of the Slim Shady EP, whilst also making it still look really nice. So good impression, first of all. The bottom bit has torn in the wrapping, but the actual vinyl itself is fine. But this isn't all I got. So with this, they actually did a bundle where you actually could get like some posters and a flyer, I think it is, that Eminem was basically releasing around the same time of this release. So for me, I think, is that all of it? Nope, there's the other one. So, first things first, we basically have this flyer, which kind of does feel a bit more like an invitation. But this is like a really nice, like, replica sort of piece to have of what potentially he was giving away. And I believe they have like gone ahead and like looked at the material that was released alongside this. So this is a nice little piece to put with this. Yeah, they've done a great job putting this together in terms of just like the details, like dress, he just don't give a blank, obviously F. So that's like a really nice, like almost replica of what was probably being handed out to promote the release party of Slim Shady EP. So that's really cool. And then even on the back, like I remember this sort of thing coming out of like, you know when like you would open an old like video game on like the original Xbox and it would like come with like this flyer that you could sign and then you like send it back with feedback and you could potentially win a prize or something. That's like the exact like feeling I'm getting of that. This is so 2000s. So that's the first really cool piece. But now if we open this, we have a poster as well, which is basically just promoting the album or the EP and its release. And again, like this just like, obviously despite it not being authentic, it does a really good job, and I will say House of Waxx clearly have done a great job here to recreate it and make it feel like a good replica or good impersonation of it at the very least. So I am quite impressed by that so far. So we're off to a good start with this, and it's not gatefold or anything, so which I'm kind of glad about because you don't really always need a gatefold for stuff, but I'll get the wrapping off so you can see it a bit better. But these two bits are actually really nice additions to this and kind of feels like it's it brings this release together, and like it does a really good job replicating it and just like capturing the era. And like I think it just like makes you appreciate where Eminem began in terms of his career and like the more humbleness of what this EP represents. And this form of like print helps remind you of that. But now onto the main show, we have the vinyl. Okay, there you go. Without much reflection, sorry, you can now see how the cover looks, and they've done a really good job in my opinion of actually upscaling it at the very least, because it isn't like perfect. It is like slightly blurred, and I can tell they've done a good job like trying to keep the noise and grain down to a minimum. You can kind of like, the good thing about it is because of the design that Eminem went for on this, it's like already like quite a distorted enough image so that it doesn't really matter if it gets distorted more. It kind of works in its effect. So to be fair, I feel like they've done a good job with the front cover here. If you then take a look on the side, we should hopefully be able to see where it says Eminem Slim Shady EP. And then if we turn it around, there you have the back cover, which obviously has all the tracks on there, all 8 of them, and a picture of Eminem there as well. And I think on this image too, you can kind of see a bit more of that distortion, but again, time period of the photos and the designs being made, mix of the effects that are added there on the time, plus upscaling, it's probably not going to always look the best, but I still feel like they've done a great job in terms of how all of this looks. And then you've got all the other details of everyone involved in there as well, the credits and everything. So yeah, overall from a look perspective, I feel like this is a really good homage to it. So far, it feels quite good. But now, it's time to actually look and appreciate the vinyl disc. So pull it out. We've got a nice protective sleeve there. So on side A, you get the first 4 tracks. Side B, you get the last 4. This does actually feel like quite a hefty record too, so that's kind of nice. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to listen to at least the first half of this, just so I can kind of get a bit of implication of how I feel like it sounds. But so far, from the actual just how all this has been put together, it feels very much like if Eminem's team were to ever like come back to this record and do an actual official vinyl release, I feel like this is pretty much how it would look. And whilst the poster and the flyer don't actually come with it, like unless you get it bundled or you buy them separately on House of Waxx, I feel like they would make for really good additions to this in terms of just like putting them inside the vinyl, and it's like an extra pull-out thing you can get. It really like completes this, in my opinion, to make it a worthwhile get. But let's have a listen to this first to see how it comes across. And unfortunately, copyright is a bitch, so I can't really use the music to show you guys, so sorry about that. Okay, so I'm straight off of listening to this, and I've got to say, I'm pretty impressed. Now, a project like this, in terms of like the conditions it was recorded in, is never going to sound the best on vinyl. So you kind of have to bear that in mind, but overall, what the guys at House of Waxx have done, I'm actually pretty impressed with in terms of the actual pressing. Like, if I ever want to listen to the Slim Shady EP, I now have what I would say is a viable way of listening to it on vinyl if I so choose. And from my listening of this, there was like no skips like going over it either in terms of like the actual grooves and everything like that. Like from a vinyl listening standard, I think this was actually a pretty good listen. And overall, it was actually quite a good chance for me to just like remind myself of how the Slim Shady EP sounded, because it has been quite a little while since I've actually listened to the project itself. But I won't lie, actually, like in terms of Eminem lyrically and in terms of the style of music he's making, I personally think it still stands up quite well now. Obviously, it's a much younger Marshall Mathers, and the quality of the recording isn't exactly great, but overall, it is actually still pretty creative in terms of what it is, and I'm very glad there was a number of tracks on here that did make it onto the Slim Shady LP, and that kind of just makes sense to me. And it's kind of interesting as well when you're listening through it, like, I'm pretty sure it was just the two of us, like, there was some form of interpolation, or just like, I could hear the bit that they had removed or replaced in the Slim Shady LP, and it's kind of nice to, like, hear the differences between them. And also, one of the things that really surprised me when I started with the intro, which was like the intro to Slim Shady, is it completely took me to My Darling from Relapse, and that kind of like relapse energy of Slim Shady on there. And I had just like, I've listened to this probably once or twice before, and that was like years ago. Like, I can't even remember it. So when I was listening to the intro, it just gave me those Relapse vibes, and almost makes me appreciate another level of Relapse, at least with My Darling, which to me makes it even more special of a song, where it kind of harken back to how you first hear Slim Shady, because you cannot tell me, if you go and listen to the intro track of this, you can't tell me My Darling is riffing off what that was doing at first in terms of that Slim Shady persona. So that was just like another cool little detail that I enjoyed like re-listening to this, and it was just a good re-listen overall, just to like remind myself of the Slim Shady EP and the kind of humble beginnings after Infinite. But now to give my review of the House of Waxx release, I'm gonna honestly say this is really solid. Like, if you are looking to expand your Eminem collection and you want something more unique, like the original stuff, like the Slim Shady EP, I personally don't think you're gonna find better quality than this in terms of how it looks, how it's been pressed. And for an extra £5, you can't really go wrong with just grabbing the extra stuff, which for me, I'm literally just gonna slot them into here. So then that way I can just keep it all together. So whenever I go to this, I can just, when I pull it out, I'll get a nice surprise in terms of the extra bits that came with it, or now they're gone. I will say I'm still not one for bootlegs, but overall, I would genuinely say this is really well done, and fair play to House of Waxx. If I had any criticism, I guess the shipping would kind of be the only thing. I won't lie, it does actually seem pretty well done in terms of like, it's protected, there's really not any damage to it. I mean, there's a little scuff up here, but honestly, that could have been me. It's not that noticeable. But if you look at it, it's very, like, I'm not sure the best way to put it. I would call this like eBay seller packaging. And I feel like I'm just nitpicking with this, but it's just like, it's just one of those things where it's like, with how good the quality this is, it would have just been a bit nicer if this kind of like came, how I would sort of see it from like any other record store, basically. This kind of just feels like this makes it feel more secondhand, in my opinion. I think that's what I'd sort of say in my feedback to this. So maybe to the guys there, just like maybe, I don't think it really needs a fragile taping on it. I genuinely think that might be the problem sorted if you got rid of that. But I do appreciate the fact they have gone through an effort to try and protect it as best as possible. And that's really my only feedback in terms of House of Waxx with this release. It got here pretty quick. There was a pre-order I had on it that was like, I think after the first week of February, and it got here last week. So yeah, it was pretty speedy as well when it got shipped out. So overall, the Eminem Slim Shady EP is getting a solid thumbs up from me. Like, obviously there's some limitations with like when this was released, but overall it's a good listening experience to have on vinyl. I'll give you guys one last look at the back cover, but yeah, I'm pretty impressed. Again, if you're looking to sort of expand your Eminem displays, or you just want another vinyl of his to put into your collection and make it a bit more different, then it's definitely a good place to start and go and to check out House of Waxx. So from my first purchase with House of Waxx, I'm very happy with it. And I do just want to clarify here, I have not been sponsored, or this has not been gifted in any sort of way. I literally just saw this release and I was just very interested in seeing what it was like. And I have heard like different opinions on House of Waxx, and I kind of wanted to find out for myself. I think, gotta shout out Vinyl Dude, because he's the guy who actually put me onto House of Waxx as just a company. And I sort of followed them on Instagram, and then I saw them release the bundle they did with this, and I was like, you know what? Let's give them a try. So firstly, I would be interested to know what you guys actually think of the Slim Shady EP. So let me know that down in the comments. And the second thing you can let me know in the comments is, have you picked this one up? And if so, what do you think? And what do you think of it based on the video I've shown you? So yeah, just a little bit of a different video for you guys reviewing a bootleg product. I'll see you guys in the next video, which will be next. Currently, it seems like we're doing Thursday at 7 PM. So hopefully I'll see you by then. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, follow me on Instagram, and I shall see you guys in the next video. Take care. Later.